So it was a big shift to actually go fully plant-based. And I did it almost as an experiment to prove to myself that it wouldn't work, so I could make peace with the fact that I just felt the way that I felt, and this is the way I'm supposed to feel, and was not expecting the sort of dramatic shift in how I felt. But I tried a bunch of stuff. I dabbled in paleo. I tried vegetarian. I sort of checked a bunch of boxes. And the one thing that I hadn't done, because I was reluctant to do it, was to go entirely plant-based, because it sounded hard. It was like, who wants to do that? Like, it just sounded difficult, and I couldn't imagine how I could ever be full or sated with anything that I was eating. So I did it kind of as a challenge, again, to like prove that it wouldn't work, because I really didn't want it to work. That's the truth. So I was as surprised as anyone when it actually seemed to resuscitate me.
If you're going to describe the key components of that diet, because I think it's sort of quite powerful what you're describing about this shift so fast. What was
It was eating plant foods as close to their natural state as possible. So limiting exposure to processed foods, trying to reduce the oil intake, and just grazing on as many varieties of plant foods as possible, home cooked and nominally limited processing.
And it wasn't raw particularly.
No, I never went totally raw. I ate a lot of raw foods. Started doing a lot of smoothies, the base of which was always like dark leafy greens, but keeping it pretty simple, like a lot of legumes, a lot of beans, a lot of quinoa, and variety. I think making sure that I was getting a lot of variety on the plate.
And Tim, you're listening to this. You're a medical doctor. I think a lot of people relate to this story, right? Like, this is a classic story of someone, anywhere in the Western world with the modern diet. You're obviously layering onto that also this story about alcohol and stress, it sounds like, with the job that you're describing. Mm-hmm. What are the implications for your health? And is it really shocking that Rich would already be feeling that sort of health impact, at the age of 40?
Well, sadly, it's not that unusual. And many people, in the US, UK, on really high ultra-processed food diets are feeling sick. And a lot of them don't realize it until they are able to change to something else and realize that's not normal. They were in this state where the food is basically, as you're describing, driving a lot of mental health issues as well, and depriving you of energy and sort of sucking the life a bit out of you. And it's only when you make that switch that you realize the problems that we were in. And this comes from a level where the majority of the foods you're eating are these artificial foods rather than real foods. And you're not really getting the whole plants at all in any way. That if you are eating plants, they're highly refined and lack any of the goodness in them. So it's not that unusual. And this is sadly why, our gut health is in such a poor state as well. So that these foods in these states, you do see in people in their 30s and 40s who have appalling gut health because of their diets and their state. And this has effects on the whole body, not just the gut. And that's really what we're just starting to understand.
I actually wanted to pick up on that because I was really struck by how much you were talking about your sort of mental health and energy within this story. How rapidly did you see this shift? And I'm particularly interested because it's something that I think we haven't tended to associate with diet in the same way that we might understand that it affects our risk of a heart attack or something.
Sure. It was pretty rapid. Like I said, within 7 to 10 days, I did feel like this resurgence, this spike in my energy levels. But at the same time, kind of hand in hand with that, there was a hopefulness that I was starting to experience. I was used to, eating a midday meal and being so tired, feeling like I had to take a nap and just kind of being checked out of my life. And so to suddenly be able to eat without that food coma that I was so acclimated around, almost like, gave me more hours in the day. And my sleep improved. And when your sleep improves, your stress levels go down. You're able to kind of navigate tricky, conflict-oriented situations a little more gracefully. And of course, your cognition and problem solving is better. So there was really no area of my life that was untouched. And yes, of course, we are we are, holistic animals. Like we're not separated from the environment, and our mental health and what's going on in our brain obviously impacts the entire body. And my experience was pretty much 360 across the board. Like so many things improved as a result of that. And that gave me the enthusiasm to just say oh, this doesn't need to be an experiment. Like, how can I make this sustainable so that I can continue to learn about how to do this properly and make it work for my life, because I want to feel this way all the time.
One of the things we talk about at ZOE a lot is this idea that if you want to make a change for your health, it's actually got to be a lifelong change. There's not some sort of like quick fix diet that you go on to like make things better for a month or two and then you go back. Obviously that pushes all this effort onto like, how can you make something sustainable? And so I think what's striking here is you're talking not only about making this big change at this one period in time, but then, you've sustained that over, close to 20 years. Did you get all the benefits literally in the first 7 to 10 days? Have you learned more and changed more through this period?
Sure, of course. I've been doing this for a very long time, so yeah, I iterate, I get my blood work done. Oh, maybe too much olive oil. Maybe I shouldn't, of course, like I'm not a perfect human being. And so I've tried to continue to learn and also to figure out how to do it when I travel and in situations where, social situations where you feel like you need to make a compromise, all of those things, like it has to work in the context of your life. But I think to your point of making it a lifetime thing, that can sound daunting and intimidating for someone like, oh, I have to change, my whole life. Like that's sort of scary, right? And the only way I was able to do it was I didn't make plans like, oh, I'm going to do this for the rest of my life. I always try to like focus my energy on what the next right decision is. Like, what's the good decision that I can make right in the present moment? Like, all we have is what's happening right now, right? We spend all this time worrying, oh, what am I going to do when I have to go to that wedding? And I know they're going to serve. It's like, forget about all that. Like, just try to do the best that you can in the circumstances in which you find yourself in, and breaking it down into tiny little chunks and let the lifetime aspect of it like take care of itself. And that's a lesson that I learned in recovery. I mean, the trope of like one day at a time, I think applies in this context. And so much of what I learned in recovery has been incredibly helpful in navigating lifestyle changes like this.
Why do you feel there's such a strong link between understanding how to shift from like the traditional diet that so many of us are having to this plant-based diet? Why do you feel that's so closely linked to recovery? What makes that work so?
I think it's multifactorial, but I would say in my experience, because I never thought I could get sober, and then when I did, that was very empowering. Like I made a huge life change that I never thought that I could. So that gave me confidence that I could make other changes in my life. But what I learned is that literally all you have is one day of sobriety every day. Like your job is to have your head hit the pillow without taking a drink. And it's very binary. It's like you're either sober or you're not. Like there's no gray area. And when I made this dietary change, I kind of needed a binary rule. And that's why plant-based was very helpful to me, because it's sort of like, well, I just don't eat these animal products. Let's just start there, right? And my job every day is to get through the day, and at the end of the day, make sure that I, sort of made the right dietary choices. And when you drill it down into just the bare essence of it and just focus on what's happening that particular day, it makes it a lot easier. I don't worry about what's going to happen tomorrow. We'll deal with that tomorrow. And so that's super helpful. And then also the accountability and community piece. Like you don't get sober alone, you do it as a collective. And I think if you're trying to navigate any kind of lifestyle change, it's helpful to have somebody to do it with or somebody to hold yourself accountable to. We're community animals. We're best when we're a member of a tribe. And so don't try to do these things alone. Do it with someone in your family. And if you don't have that option, then find a friend, or at least find somebody who can check in on you. Hey, that that you kind of have to report to. And that's always helpful also to kind of keep you on track. And then when you, like in sobriety, if you relapse, The most important thing is making sure that you get right back to it. You can, go down a shame spiral or just, throw the baby out with the bathwater and say, well, that was hard. I can't do it. But I've learned, yes, what's the next right thing? Okay, the next right thing is to make the right choice again and try to course correct as quickly as possible and learn what drove the relapse. Because I think what's under-discussed in this conversation around making diet and lifestyle changes is the emotional piece. Like on paper, we all know we should eat more fiber and we should eat more plants and all these sorts of things. So why is it so difficult? I had to learn about how much my emotions are caught up in the food choices that I make. And I think we unconsciously, many people unconsciously are medicating their emotions through their food choices or are unduly influenced by their social environments and make choices that are not in their best interest because they don't want to upset anyone or, draw unnecessary attention to themselves.